back to another episode of Referee's Discretion. My name is Codd Sinclair, and today we are finishing our 4-part Trick or Treat series. This series has been now 4 weeks of reviews from WCW's Halloween Havoc pay-per-view event. For each review, I have been joined by someone that you have seen on PWO WrestleCast either Monday or Thursday or both. Joining me for part 4. Typically, you see him twice a week. He is the host of PWO WrestleCast, Matt Lilly. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty excited. I don't know how I should feel after you've made me watch this show, but I'm very happy to make my Referee's Discretion debut.
Excellent. So we are looking at WCW Halloween Havoc 1999 today, also taking place from the MGM Grand. The MGM Grand was kind of the epicenter of all the larger scale WCW pay-per-views at the time. I know that you are a little bit younger than some of the other people that have been on here. So what can you remember about professional wrestling in general from around the late 90s?
So here's where this is going to get real interesting. I didn't start watching wrestling until about 2002, 2003.
Wow. Okay.
So a lot of what I know has been going back and watching it using the network and having older brothers. So what I can tell you that I remember is WWF No Mercy and WCW/NWO Revenge were fantastic games. That's about the best I can tell you. Everything else was all just going back and researching on my own.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, though, because it kind of gives you a non-biased opinion about what you've watched, or maybe people that you've never seen before, kind of giving us here on the show a fresh perspective. So I picked the oldest one for you. I'm thinking, maybe there might be a bit of a connection. But you know what? We're going to jump right into it here. We have Tony Schiavone, Bobby the Brain Heenan on commentary. To start the show, we have breaking news from Schiavone that Rey Mysterio Jr. is unable to compete due to a leg injury. Some more bad news that the powers that be, and this is not the first time that they are referenced throughout the show, but they have stripped him and Conan of the tag team titles. The vacant titles will be defended in a triple threat street fight later in the evening. So we will get to that in a second. But we kick off with the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. We have the current champion, Disco Inferno, taking on the Raging Cajun, Lash LaRue. You watched the show a little bit before I did, and the first thing I remember you saying was, the show starts with somebody named Lash LaRue. How do you think it went?
It wasn't just that. It started with Disco Inferno. That to me was the, oh no, what have I gotten myself into?
Yeah, but this is a very green Lash LaRue. As once WCW was bought out, he wasn't seen on a major promotion. He did spend some time in the Indies. But he didn't look good, but he didn't look bad here, I think. I think the highlight of this match was him hitting a blue thunder bomb out of nowhere. But that is to no avail, though, as you get the Disco Inferno, who hits an atomic drop and a last dance. He picks up the win here, and I think the thing that killed this match the most was, A, the fact that he was so green in the ring still, and B, I think that Disco Inferno thought that he was too good for this match. You could kind of tell that it didn't click. What did you think of the match overall, though?
I think you hit the hammer right on the head of the nail there. Disco seemed uninterested, and Disco Inferno is not the type of guy who's going to be able to pull a great match out of someone who's very green. But all this being said, I think at the end of the day, this is probably in the upper half of better matches on this card, which is, I think, saying something here.
Yeah. I mean, I was so hard on this show because I went back and I watched it again earlier today before the review, and I gave this a 0 count. I couldn't. It was so rough to watch at times. It was just very slow moving, and you could tell just from sequence to sequence how difficult Disco Inferno was being to work with. You caught a couple of botches, but the big thing for me in grading this was the past 2 Halloween Havocs that we reviewed here on Referee's Discretion. And you see that the Cruiserweight Championship match is kicking off the show as the previous 2. So genuinely, I got very excited because the past 2 shows that has been the top match of the card. But this totally fell flat for me. It wasn't even close to this wasn't even close to what they had been able to do in previous years. Did you have a grade on this one?
Yeah, I think a no count's as fair as I can give it. I don't know how many more matches are going to be higher than that, but yeah, it's a no count. I think sounds right to me.
Yeah, but we cut immediately to that. We get a video earlier in the day, and we get Perry Saturn. He wants to know where Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko have been because him and Shane Douglas have been trying to get a hold of them all day. Malenko says he can't take the Revolution anymore, and he can shove it where the sun don't shine. Benoit falls right in line. Right as he walks away, we cut to Mike Tenay, and he's with Harlem Heat. And he asks if they are worried about their no disqualification match. We get a very from the streets kind of response. The best line of this whole thing, Booker says, "Now can you dig that?" And then Tenay just looks at him and says, "Yeah, I can relate." And then just turns to Stevie Ray and just continues the promo. But I mentioned this in our last Referee's Discretion, where we looked at Halloween Havoc '96, and even though Russo wasn't the head writer at that point, these 2 shows are very similar. Yes, correct. He is the head writer for this show.
The first show, I believe. Yes,
correct. And these are most parallel as far as the very quick cuts from backstage segment to segment, and even from match to segment. These are getting really quick. But he has his thumbprints all over this card, and that is very apparent as our next match. We do have the triple threat street fight for the vacant WCW World Tag Team Championships. We have the first family, which is Hugh Morris and Brian Knobbs versus Harlem Heat. Obviously, Booker T and Stevie Ray versus the Filthy Animals, Conan and Billy Kidman, who wear the titles out to the ring, even though they had been vacated. Also, this match has two referees. And that plays in the finish. I didn't even know where to begin with this. I'm going to cut straight to the finish here.
Please do.
There's a lot of brawling in this match. And then all of a sudden we get some action up the ramp, and then cut directly to the back. Stevie Ray hits Brian Knobbs with a mummy, and gets the win. However, the bell doesn't ring yet because nobody knows. Nobody knows that this is an actual decision. So you still have the action going on in the ring. So as they're walking back out to the ring to say that these are the winners, the new champions, then we get a decision in the ring that we don't even see at home. Billy Kidman scores a pinfall in the ring. And then you get some confusion in the ring. Eventually, Harlem Heat are declared the new tag team champions. This was an absolute waste of 7 minutes from start to finish. This is a 0 count. Nothing better than WCW fans booing you unconditionally for an incredibly dumb match and dumb finish. Matt, what did you think of the match?
Looking at the card before we walked in, I think this was probably the match I was most excited for, honestly. I love Harlem Heat. And honestly, I love Billy Kidman. I love Billy Kidman. I don't care what people say. I still love the shooting star press, all of it. I love Billy Kidman. Seeing that he was in this match, and I thought this was going to be great. It was low. I already saw the time mark on it, thinking like 5 minutes. Okay. But the match ended with Stevie Ray throwing a mummy, an actual mummy. And this is like one of the only like real Halloween aspects of the show that they go with. And it's just bad. It was so bad. My expectations were so high, and it just, it was rough. It was really rough.
Yeah, welcome to late 90s WCW.
Just had Vince Russo's hands all over it to me.
Yeah. So, hey, cut to that mess, backstage to another mess,
Ooh.
where we have Ric Flair with a crowbar.
I'm sorry. Can I interject just one last thing? Because we were talking earlier about a Mike Tenay quip. I believe that this was, I think this was Shivani. But after the match, Stevie Ray and Booker T are walking out with the belts, but Torrie Wilson and Rey Mysterio come out at the top to watch everyone walk out. And Shivani just has to point out that's Rey Mysterio on the right, just so you know. And like Torrie Wilson, like a foot taller than him and everything. It was just like, this is the most comedic statement you could have stated after this. It was a complete joke.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have needed to be said. However, for those who don't know, Rey Mysterio does not have a mask on at this point in his WCW run. He lost it in a match and was violently demasked on an episode of Nitro by the Outsiders. He took off his mask and he was like, "Yeah, this is my face." And then you had your ugly jokes for a couple weeks, but okay, thank God when he went to WWF, he put the mask back on.
Agreed.
So, like I said, Ric Flair now backstage with a crowbar. Just a typical Ric Flair promo, just spitting off at the mouth. Then cut the DDP and Kimberly, who make their way to the ring. Here's the thing about this entire show. There's a couple of times where people come onto the ring and then leave, and then come to the ring and then leave. And it's like, you can accomplish this so much better, but this is how we choose to do this. So, with that being said, Kimberly Page, talking about Ric Flair spanking her 14 times. So for some reason, DDP is like, "Hey, great idea. I'm going to challenge you to a strap match." And as far as storyline goes, this match is not in the books yet. Like, this match has not been signed or anything. This was a challenge made on the pay-per-view. So the mic drop, right backstage we go. And Mike Tenay is then with Eddie Guerrero and Kidman and Torrie Wilson. Tenay says that the Revolution and the Filthy Animals have both been barred from ringside. And then Tenay notices that Eddie Guerrero is wearing Ric Flair's watch. Keep that in mind as we cut directly to our next matchup. Before we go to that, this is about a just 3-hour pay-per-view. And we are rushing from segment to segment like the house is on fire. And it doesn't make any sense. And this is something that we give current professional wrestling a lot of gripe for, is just these long, drawn-out segments that don't mean anything. So from your perspective, now the way that kind of the speed of, the transitional segments are booked now as compared to this, do you fall one way or the other with them? Or do you prefer maybe the current time to this, or how do you feel?
I think I prefer, and this might sound crazy, and maybe this is a little bit of modern bias, I think I prefer current days. I really felt like this whole show there was nowhere to breathe in it. If you took your eyes off it, you were going to miss something. And I guess in one sense, that's a really great thing to have for your show. But with this one, and especially with, I think it was a train wreck, honestly. Um, it just felt like, oh God, okay, what's happening now? Let me keep track of, okay, where we go. All right, backstage. Okay, now we're back in the ring. Who's right? Yeah. So it was just too much happening all at once. There was no chance for people just to like ingest what they were being said. Like I completely remember the Eddie Guerrero promo happening, but I don't remember. I think a word of what he said just because we didn't get a chance to really think about it.
Yeah, and I think that's a common theme across the entire pay-per-view with as far as segments go, whether in ring or backstage, is that you said it perfectly. There's no room to breathe outside of just the in-ring action. So speaking of in-ring action, we get Eddie Guerrero taking on Perry Saturn. We do get Guerrero coming out to the ring, still wearing Ric Flair's watch. He gives it to Bobby Heenan. Please keep that in mind. I am not saying that just for the sake of my health. We'll cut straight to the finish again. Guerrero goes up top and he hits a big superplex. Actually, I'll back up one move. Guerrero gets crushed on the top rope. Perry Saturn hits a super Northern Light suplex, which Tony Schiavone calls a backdrop. Holy smokes, I had to pause and not try to explode on that. So then we get the superplex, and then cut to the entrance ramp, and here comes Ric Flair, crowbar in hand. Saturn rolls out of the ring because he knows what's good for him. Flair hits Guerrero with the crowbar, and it is a disqualification finish. Post-match, Billy Kidman tries to make the save, but gets a crowbar shot as well. So who's next to try and save the day but Tori Wilson?
Not Rey Mysterio.
Not Rey Mysterio, in case you were confused at home. So Flair grabs her, pretends he's going to hit her, and then kisses her. Flair walks back up the ramp, then comes running back down. Like, this is not like a light jog. This is like Royal Rumble, like, gotta get to the ring now kind of running. Walks to the commentary desk, gets his watch back from Bobby Heenan. I was really torn on this match. I gave it a 1 count just because of some of the in-ring spots. The crowd was completely out of it. And I don't know if they were still reeling from the match before this, or if it was just something they were uninterested in. And it got progressively better as the match went on, but the crowd was just so flat for this. I feel like they could have done so much better. I feel like this could have been booked better is the main problem for me. What did you grade this one?
I think a 1 count is very fair. I think this is also probably, once again, one of the better matches that we get. The crowd, I think, is suffering exactly from what we were saying, no chance to breathe, so they can't keep up with what's going on. If you can't keep up, you're going to sit on your hands because you don't know who to cheer and who to boo. I think the other thing for this was that there is so much interweaving of different storylines going on, and we're going to come back to this, I know, later when we talk about the strap match. But God, I love Ric Flair. Could you imagine if he did this today? Like, just the reaction it would get, Twitter would implode, and it would just be a PR nightmare. But another, like, just great commentary line after Flair is done breathing life into Tori. I swear it was rough and uncomfortable. They're going, she never had dimples before that. Now she's got dimples. She's got dimples.
Another classic Bobby Heenan quote there.
There's just so many like off-brand comments and commentary made during this entire show.
But that, I think, falls in line with also who's writing the show and who's booking the show. It's all over this show. But don't breathe yet, because we got to cut immediately backstage now. Goldberg is assaulting Sid Vicious. He gets up. He is busted open. He's screaming. Cut to the ring and you get Buff back. See, it's very common as we're just. It feels like we're rushing through this entire review. We're really not. This is how this card was paced, and just the fact that this segment leads to absolutely nothing, it will just boggle my mind. So like I said, we get Buff Bagwell now out to the ring, and immediately makes a comment about the two new writers from the North who are going to save WCW. Like I said, they are mentioned a couple of times in a couple of different ways. But ultimately, Buff said that he has an issue with Jeff Jarrett, who hit him with the guitar this past week. So Jarrett, again, no time to breathe whatsoever, sprinting out to the ring, guitar in hand. Buff's got the upper hand for a little bit. Jarrett gets there. They trade momentum, and Lex Luger out to the ring because why not? So he grabs the guitar, goes to hit Jarrett, instead hits Buff Bagwell. That is the last you see of Buff Bagwell, the last you see of Jeff Jarrett, and unfortunately, this is not the last time you see Lex Luger on this show.
I do want to say Buff ate that guitar shot.
Yeah.
It was rough, but gotta remember, it's not Lex Luthor, it's the total package.
Oh yeah.
The total package.
Right. He is the total package and not Lex Luger, but it's really funny, and I will cut ahead a little bit just for the sake of this. But even when they're talking to Bret Hart backstage, he's like, "Oh, I've been in the ring with Lex Luger before," totally killing the whole new total package, which is just a ripoff of his narcissist gimmick that he had in WWF.
I don't understand why they changed his name to the total package. Why not just make it the nickname? Like,
it was new rebranding and just repackaging. Just trying to give him another new look, as always. But yeah, that guitar shot, he didn't get any of the guitar. He got he got like where the guitar part meets, right there where it hit him on the head. And holy smokes, surprised he didn't get split open from that. But that was so funny. Luger had to throw a tantrum, and he took the guitar and just busted it over the turnbuckle. He's like, I should have busted it the first time, but here we are. So then, without a moment to breathe, we get Mike Tenay backstage in the trainer room. Sid's getting fixed up. I swear it was maybe 2 to 3 seconds tops. Sid flips the trainer's table over and screams, "Let him bleed," a handful of times, like top of his lungs level screaming, "Let him bleed!" And immediately cut to Eddie Guerrero, who's sitting on something like production steps or outdoor steps. Who knows? We don't know where he's at. But he's on the phone and he calls Rey Mysterio. He says, "You need to get back to the arena now. You got to be here right now. I don't care." Transition. Oh, gosh. It's so bad. So we get Brad Armstrong here versus Berlin, also known as Alex Wright. I'll get to the whole Berlin thing here because I did a good amount of research for why it was made and why he was off of TV for so long. But I know you were digging that sweet Brad Armstrong theme.
Oh, totally.
It's classic WCW in the best ways. But this is feud as old as time. You have Brad Armstrong being the true blood American versus Berlin, who hates all American wrestlers, according to Tony Schiavone. So we get the USA chance throughout the match. This is only about 4.5 minutes. The finish, though, Berlin goes for a DDT. Armstrong holds onto the top rope. All Berlin does is fall to the ground, and he gets on top and gets the 3 count. Immediately, once the bell rings, the wall comes in, and him and Berlin put the boots to Brad Armstrong. They, I guess, stand tall at the end. There's nothing redeeming here. Zero stars. Anything to add? Because I swear I'm going to go into a Berlin
I have
right now.
The change from Alex Wright to Berlin is a mistake, but yeah, go ahead.
So the gimmick was absolutely dead on arrival. So the first half of 1999, they had nothing for him, so he wasn't on TV. Did you know that he himself came up with the Berlin gimmick?
I did actually look that up because I was very confused why he became Berlin. Yeah.
So unintentionally, though, the promos that they were shooting coincided with the aftermath of the events at Columbine High School. So all of his new outfits and all of his ring gear and his promos, everything was very similar to the teenagers involved with that tragedy. So they put the debut off until the end of August. So now we're looking at beginning of 1999 now to almost September. So you're off for 8 months. You couldn't package him as Alex Wright for a couple of months at least. But finally, we get his debut match at Fall Brawl the month before this pay-per-view. He was supposed to face Buff Bagwell. Buff Bagwell was supposed to lose. And he refused to take the match because of that. So typical backstage pulling of strings, replaced by Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Have you seen this match?
I've avoided it.
So it's very interesting because obviously this is Berlin's first match. Against Duggan. Duggan no-sells the entire match. He eventually ate the pin. So it's just very confusing why Alex Wright, who was fine as a heel cruiserweight, and I know where he's coming from, and I compare it to how Nick Dinsmore ended up getting onto the main roster, where he knew that he had talent and he came up with a gimmick to get him on TV. And to this and in this regard, he was off of TV for so long. He finally comes up with a gimmick. They have to nix it for a while, so push to the back burner. You got to keep it rolling. But once they were like, this isn't getting over. The Wall got a singles run. He would go back to being Alex Wright. And that was at the end of September 2000. So he was still Berlin for almost a whole year. But he would eventually not be signed by WWF. And he ended up retiring, which is very unfortunate because I thought that he was a great cruiserweight. As far as being a heel and being in that particular division. But I think just a string of bad luck in regard to, you don't have anything for me, so here's what I came up with. And then just a series of unfortunate events, and now it's 9 months not on TV. So anything you'd like to add about Berlin?
Yeah, I mean, Alex Wright, I think was a top-notch wrestler in ring. He was very fun to watch from everything I've gone back to see. What really confused me, and I think we see this a lot when you go back and you see a lot of other wrestlers who left WCW talk about how they never had something written for them, so they would just be off TV. I know Jericho talked about, like, I needed to make stuff up, and pretty much it was one of those things. I know he just talked about it with Rufus. How that was just a guy backstage he just grabbed. That wasn't someone actually signed. It was pretty much do whatever you can. But man, the Wunder Kid gimmick you could work as both a heel and a face. You could just turn him from being super good guy dancing down the ring to cocky and I'm better than you. Look at what we did with the Daniel Bryan yes and no, like the celebrating as soon as he won the world title. That could have been Alex Wright. I mean, that exact scenario over celebrating. It just feels like we had an opportunity for someone to be a superstar in one of your better wrestling divisions. Took him off TV. He comes up with something creative and ingenious and gets shut down just because of the unfortunate timing. And then they push the wall. They push the wall. I don't. He got dealt a very bad hand. He could have been successful, I think, and could have made a lot of money, especially if he went to WWE afterwards.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. You have some time to breathe. Psych. Just kidding. Mike Tenay backstage with Ric Flair. Flair calls out all the filthy animals, saying he's here all night. Come and take your shot. He also tells DDP that he's going to give him the spanking that he gave Kimberly. So throughout that whole thing, you get a ton of woos. I think it was about 20 in a 3-minute span. Just an odd promo. But don't worry, you have no time to breathe once again. Because you get the WCW Television Championship match next, as the champion coming out first, Chris Benoit, taking on the dog-faced gremlin himself, Rick Steiner. I'll let you start with this one because I could not care less about this match.
Once again, I think it's a situation like we talked about Perry Steiner and Eddie Guerrero. Like, you have these two, and they're not bad workers. They're pretty solid workers, but I'm exhausted watching the show. I can only imagine a fan in the building trying to cheer and keep track of what's going on. I'm also very curious if they had access to view what was happening in backstage segments through the small monitors or screens up front. So were they even aware of like the Ric Flair promos, or were they just sitting on their hands waiting for the next thing to happen? But once again, crowd just never seemed to really get into it. It could have been so much better than what it was. I feel like that's a great thing for all of these matches that we're talking about. It could have been so much better looking at the names involved.
Yeah, I feel a little differently about Rick Steiner. I feel like at this point he was on kind of the downturn of his career. He definitely botched a little in this match. Definitely not as nimble as he once was.
I agree with that.
I think just the fact that by the time that this match had hit his crescendo, he was gassed. And it wasn't, and at one point they sell this as him trying to think of his next move, or this is just his strategy. Then the next move, okay, it looks like Rick Steiner goes for a power bomb, but then I guess flips Benoit over, and oh my God, I thought he broke his neck because he fell right on the base of his head and the back of his neck. And then, so of course, what's the next move? Punches to the back of the neck. Why not? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. We'll cut to the finish. There's a steel chair in play. The steel chair is now on Rick Steiner, middle of the ring. Benoit goes for the diving headbutt. Steiner throws the chair into his face as he's coming down. How there wasn't a bigger injury than anything that could have happened is beyond me, because I was sure either he was going to lose an eye or he was going to get cut for that. But no. All right. After that, both men are down. Dean Malenko, to save the day, grabs the chair. He's going to hit Steiner. Swerve. Hits Benoit on the head. Malenko throws the ref in. Rick Steiner gets the win. He is the new television champion. Perry Saturn standing at the top of the ramp. Him and Malenko lock eyes. And they do what all best friends do. They hug it out. And I gave this a half count because it was just so plotting for me just to watch the first minute and 20 minutes of this match being Rick Steiner outside of the ring. I couldn't for the life of me stand that. And the fact that the ref bump comes and he's gassed and then he has to plot his way through the rest of the match, it was just not for me. But like you said, you look at this match on paper and in the mid to late 90s, this could have been a banger. It just seemed like it just didn't click and the fans weren't involved. But yeah, what did you end up grading this one?
I had it about a 1 count, honestly. Just because I can take a little bit of that slower pace. I definitely think he was gassed, but I think my very big takeaway from all of this, Dean Malenko doesn't wear socks when he's wearing dress shoes, and that bothers me. That was the big thing there.
Yeah. I wasn't looking at his feet. I was just sitting there asking myself, what did I do to deserve this from this card, looking at it on paper? And granted, I didn't see the swerve coming, which at this point in WCW, there were swerves for the sake of having a swerve. But I thought that this was actually a well-done swerve, especially from the video package they showed earlier in the day. So,
especially where it leads to in the next pay-per-view.
So then we get Mike Tenay backstage with Bret the Hitman Hart. Doctors told him not to compete in tonight's match with Lex Luger. This past week, the Total Package took a baseball bat to the knee of Bret Hart during his championship match with Sting. And Bret Hart, being the best darn face that he can be, as long as the fans are behind me, everything will be fine. And then turns it right around and says that Luger will be executed by the excellence of execution. All of this coinciding with what happens over the next 2 months is exactly why WCW dropped the ball with Bret Hart. It was just so. Don't worry, we jump right to this match. There's no room to breathe once again. So we get the Total Package being accompanied by Miss Elizabeth versus Bret the Hitman Hart. And as I said earlier in the show, his theme here is the same as it was when he was the narcissist in WWF. Instead of mirrors all around him, Elizabeth rips his shirt off, and then he goes to tear away his pants, and it gets stuck on his foot like the schmuck he is. I am not a Lex Luger fan.
No.
He's really bad in the ring. I think he looked like a schmuck in this match, honestly. Overall, I think it was about a 90-10 split as far as offense between Bret Hart and him. But half of that 10 is just eye rakes to get out of holds and breathe. Yeah, and an eye poke. But they both take a tumble to the ringside floor, and they're playing this out as if they landed on Bret's bad leg. So they get back in the ring. Bret can barely stand. Luger takes about a minute to work the bad leg. He puts him in a single leg Boston Crab, and Bret taps. It's very interesting that they had that finish only because Bret has never to this point tapped out. I gave it a 1 count, and it was because of Bret's in-ring work and the fact that he had to carry 270 pounds of manure around a ring for almost 8 minutes. I thought that Luger looked really bad just not going for the leg immediately. I would have had a lot more respect for this match if it was booked to respect the fans. They had the whole storyline be about Bret's bad leg and, how he wasn't supposed to compete tonight, and then turn around and the offense you get in is not relating to that at all. So I thought that made Luger look bad. But back to the point that that this is the first time he has actually tapped out. He's passed out. He's been in a screw job. But outside of that, he hasn't physically tapped out. You would think with somebody like Bret Hart, they would have made a bigger deal about this, or they would have done it in a bigger spot or a bigger moment. That's just me. How did you feel?
This whole match felt very off to me, and I think it's very well documented. Just about WrestleCast that, like, I've watched a lot of Bret Hart. I'm not a very big fan of who he is as a person, just on a lot of things that he's done and said. I cannot deny his talent in ring. I cannot deny that. And honestly, he was probably one of the better workers in that era. But man, Vince McMahon was right. It's well documented in Bret's autobiography. Vince told him WCW would have no idea what to do with Bret Hart, and it has never been more apparent in this match for me. Bret Hart controlled this match, which I honestly I was kind of okay with. I was thinking, all right, you're showing your valiant babyface. He's fighting hard. He's doing everything. I would have preferred a little more offense out of the total package, which, but the finish did not match up with his promo. As long as I have the fans fighting for me, I will keep going. I'll keep doing it. Putting him in that half Boston Crab, I would have much preferred to see Bret pass out in this situation, or maybe the ref stop the match. I know we've gotten a lot of that recently in AEW, but man, it doesn't reflect well for Bret. It didn't really do much for Luger either, because Luger just looked like an opportunist, which I guess counts for some heels, but Bret is a top star in the 90s in professional wrestling. He has main evented WrestleManias. Having him come out halfway through this show and tapping out, like, it's not good. It's not good at all. He should have passed out. Ref should have called it. And also he tapped too soon, in my opinion. And I get that you're selling the injury, but have him hold a little bit longer, because that's a moment that you can point to and you can have your fans eat into that. Oh my God, is he gonna do it? Is Bret Hart? Is it gonna happen? Like, if you were gonna lead towards him tapping out, and like you said, this is the first time we've seen it, why not lean into that a bit more? You could have been building that whole thing up. The package could have been saying it this entire time, I'm going to make you give up in the ring. If that was the end goal, make him come out as a star with it. It seemed like no one really benefited from this match.
Yeah. First of all, Lex Luger doesn't earn my respect that much.
Yes.
Go ahead, Pat, from last week when we reviewed Halloween Havoc 96, how he feels about Lex Luger.
Poor man's Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, but I completely agree. Nobody comes out looking good in this. But I'll circle back to Bret Hart and what this means for him, and the kind of, wonky finishes where nobody taps or somebody throws in the towel. We see that a little later in the show. But we will get to it when we get there, because no time to breathe. Mike Tenay backstage with the total package Lex Luger. Gosh, I am just so over Lex Luger at this point that it's just embedded in my mind.
I can't blame you.
Mike Tenay with Goldberg. They are standing over the puddle of blood of Sid Vicious, and Tenay is like, "Oh, are you worried at all?" And then essentially he responds that he will decapitate him. Immediately cut to that, to Medusa coming out in a bikini, Stars and Stripes, during Halloween Havoc, advertising the new WCW Nitro cologne. She says that she doesn't like to be out here in a bikini, and that she's out there to tell the powers that be that this is all BS. She then dumps the cologne all over Bobby Heenan, who has been trashing this thing since she came out. Whatever. I'll get to why I think this happened overall as we get to our next match. Oh, this is a Vince Russo classic here, ladies and gentlemen.
You knew this was going to be bad when this was halfway through the card.
Yeah. WCW Heavyweight Championship match. Sting, the current champion, versus Hulk Hogan, who is not Hollywood at this point. But, yep, that's what we see first. But we do get Hogan's music hit. The whole theme song plays, but he doesn't come out. So commentary bouncing ideas off of each other. Bobby Heenan saying that maybe he pulled a power play and wants to come out second, which is totally fine. We've seen it both ways throughout this entire card. Where
that was the most like Jeff Hall thing I ever heard was one of them responded, well, some people care about the champion coming out last. And all I could think was, oh, Jeff is clapping right now.
Yeah, Jeff is rolling over. So he doesn't come out. They cut his music. They immediately play Sting's. Sting comes out. You could tell by the look on his face that there was some shenanigans afoot. We didn't know it at first. But then we get Hulk Hogan's music that plays once again after a minute about here he comes, and he is not in black and white. He is not in the yellow and red. He is in street clothes. He is in what looks to be a denim cutoff vest and some jeans and boots, and you got to have a bandana of some sort to hide the balding. Gets in the ring. He has a very quick conversation with Sting. The bell doesn't even ring yet until he lays down on the mat. Sting, without hesitation, hears the bell, pins him. Hogan gets up and just walks away. And obviously I'm giving this a 0 count. This was a match. There was an official. There were introductions. There was a count. There was a declared winner. This is a match. It's a 0 count. This was a worked shoot, and this is kind of a staple of Vince Russo booking. We would see it at the following year's Bash to the Beach, probably one of the more controversial spots in professional wrestling history. And that involving, once again, Hulk Hogan and Jeff Jarrett. That would be more over creative control. Sorry, Pat. But essentially, Hulk Hogan's backstage pull. So I'll have to look at that one day. However, in this regard, there were no shenanigans. I mean, it was that this is a work shoot for the sake of a work shoot. So we watched Bound for Glory a little while back, 2020. Yeah. And we even talked about it on WrestleCast, where people bought that pay-per-view, some people, not all, but in hopes of seeing Kylie Ray. And, the rumors are the rumors, but she was not there. So imagine 1999 and being in attendance. You're going to see Hulk Hogan, the legendary, godlike creature, Hulk Hogan. Like, this is the reason why I came and bought these tickets, and you getting this. I just don't know what else to say about it. What do you got?
You put Sting and Hulk Hogan at the main event. I mean, are there two? I mean, you could probably say the Outsiders. You could say Ric Flair. But in the late 90s of WCW, are there two more iconic people at the top of the card? Maybe Goldberg. Maybe you can include Goldberg in this conversation. But the two people I always think of when I think late 90s WCW, Hulk Hogan and Sting. These are your top stars, and you get people excited and build up. Sting is acting very heel like. This is a very face Hulk Hogan, and yeah, I'm sure we've seen it since, and we've seen it a bunch with NWO. But why are we just throwing this away? it for me, as someone who didn't watch it live and did not watch a lot of WCW live, knowing what you get when you bring in Vince Russo. This is very frustrating for me because I can only think of a handful of times where I've seen Hogan sing, and say what you will, referee spots that are blown, Bret Hart blowing spots. Like, we just can't get the match we deserve out of these two ever. They tried to do it again in Impact, what, 20, not 20, but like 13 years later. And
Glory 2011.
Oh, God, sorry. So 12 years later.
But, and it wasn't a clean finish. Don't worry.
we can never get this match. How can we?
No, and I think that was, the ultimate demise is that, and as much as people will fight to the death that, Hulk Hogan is the best thing that professional wrestling has ever been presented, there are people that say that he is the worst thing of professional wrestling. And, this is just one of those specific occasions where, even though he had nothing to do with it, as far as the decision that was made, with him still being involved in the match, everything funnels back to him. And then you look at Bash of the Beach 2000, and you look at this and that, and you're like, oh, well, how do I know this is a worked shoot when we got this? And then we look at this, and, what did Hulk Hogan say to Sting? And, vice versa. We don't know. But the thing is, everything funnels back to Hogan.
And that, to me, is just the most frustrating thing, is that we don't get any closure on this. We get no real idea of why this happened, what was said. Like, it is so frustrating when you build a story, and I mean, at this point, it is like the Cena Orton, it's Sting versus Hogan, You expect a match. You expect something. It's just so frustrating. We got nothing. We got nothing out of this, and where it leads to is worse off, in my opinion. It's worse off.
Yeah. I will give you the ultimate outcome of this at the very end. But for now, we will get to our next match, which the pre-match video package is like interlaced with the finish of the Hogan Sting match. I don't know if that was just my network or was it on yours?
It was on my network too. It was very bad production, in my opinion.
So either it was production or it was something that WWE did that maybe they don't want us to see. I don't know, because I didn't watch it live. I mean, this is 99, so 9 or 10. So
I think this was a WCW era, because even like you can still hear commentators talking over it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
And
but no fear,
bringing the booze.
No fear. You can still hear the booze, and here we go. Even going into the next match, you hear the booze from the championship match. But here we go with another championship match with the champion coming out first. We have Sid Vicious defending the United States Heavyweight Championship against the man called Goldberg. I will get my shtick out of the way here. Sid coming out still has blood residue on his forehead and in his hair. I don't know if they were on a time crunch. They couldn't clean man's up quick enough. But Goldberg making his way down, gets the whole shebang, gets the music, gets the backstage security, gets all the way down to where he's almost at ringside. And here we get the outsiders, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, jumping in from behind. Goldberg, though, rises to the occasion, gets to his feet, Sid jumps in from behind. This is a fight from start to finish, and I will pass to you for this one.
So just right off the bat, who are we supposed to cheer for? Because I mean, Goldberg starting off the show beating up Sid Vicious to a bloody pulp backstage is such a heel thing. Like, and let it bleed, whatever, let it happen. It's such a babyface thing. You hit the promo video before this, and it's all about how Sid Vicious, Goldberg can't do this. Goldberg's a piece of trash. Just these mixed signals once again. And again, what is the point of the outsiders coming down and attacking Goldberg? I know we're continuing the storyline, but we're overbooking it. We're adding too many layers onto something that didn't need it. Have Goldberg beat him to a bloody pulp before the show, come back in, and I know we're going to get to the finish here with it, but like there's too many factors, too many added things into it. Too many chefs in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a Goldberg Sid Vicious match is not going to be some 5-star in the Tokyo Dome type event. It's not. Dave Meltzer ain't even going to do that. But these guys did what they could. And that's all I can ask for. I mean, you don't expect these guys to out wrestle each other. It is a fight. You want to see a fight when you see these guys. But you can't sit down and enjoy it because A, you don't know who you're cheering for, and B, well, this isn't even a fair fight because one got beat up an hour ago and the other one just got beat up, so they're both coming in. It's a cripple fight now. So what are we doing?
I agree, and I think that they were trying to push Sid at the time because he came in and he was being called the Millennium Man, but you're absolutely right. His promos, leading up to this, there was the whole thing where, if you touch me, we're not going to have, our match, which is a heel move.
Yes.
And you get Goldberg who spears him. He's had enough with it, and then throughout this match, it almost seemed like they wanted to Stone Cold and Bret Hart this thing and double turn, because as the match goes on, the crowd is behind Sid, and which makes the end of this match, the end of this night, even more dumb. But Sid eventually gets busted open again. I think my favorite spot of this match is that Sid has a camel clutch locked in, and Goldberg, by hook or by crook, however this happened, he got him up in an electric chair from the camel clutch and dropped him. I was sold at that point. But eventually, just Sid taking too much punishment. He's in the corner. He tries to come out of the corner. He falls to his knees right at Goldberg's feet. Referee checks him, calls for the bell. This is a TKO victory. It's a referee stoppage in favor of Goldberg. I really liked this match. I don't know what it was. It might have just been seeing the rest of this card and then this right where it needed to be. But I had a lot of fun with this match. I gave it a 1.5 count. I think you're right where we didn't know who to cheer for, but I think that Sid comes out of this looking like $1 million. Because if the goal was to double turn him, then I think it worked out. But even if you're looking to just turn Sid, I think the crowd did their in that regard. I don't know what Rick Steiner has to do with all of this. I didn't go that deep into the archive.
They're just really good buddies.
Yeah. But essentially he comes out. He's like, "Oh no, man, we're done here. We're done." Get him all the way to the top of the ramp. And then Sid is like, "Whoa, wait." And then starts walking back to the ring, and Rick stops him. He's like, man, we're done. And you see one fan off to the side, and he's just like, go to the back. Go now. And he's laid this for a solid minute. And so I really like this match. What did you grade it?
It's a 1.5 count. Like I said, you want to see these guys fight, and we got that. If there were less shenanigans around it, this would probably be a 2 count for me. If we don't have the outsiders jump at the beginning of the match, it's probably a 2 count for me. The visual of just red face, blood going down his chest, Sid Vicious walking back to the ring like, nah, I don't care that you stopped it. I'm ready. I'm not done yet. You know, it is a fantastic visual. And I really think this was a great reminder of, you know, I think Sid Vicious gets a little bit of a bad rep because a lot of the things that you see with him, you see the messed up promo that was live when he thought it was taped. You see the badly worded promo. And I think a lot of people really stick to that. But Sid Vicious really could have been a top guy, I think, honestly. If they put him in a better situation or if they gave him a mouthpiece to talk for him, I don't know why we couldn't be sitting here talking about how Sid Vicious is one of the better WCW heavyweight champions. And this could have been the moment to build off.
Yeah. He just couldn't find his scissors, I guess. On that note, on
that.
So don't worry, we're coming off of this incredible high of the card, and don't worry, right back down. Strange video. We don't get a whole lot of context with this one. We get Kimberly Page, in a hotel room. She is to the nines as far as her lingerie goes. Flair comes in, jumps on the bed. Anyway.
So I can add a little bit on this one.
Please,
this was originally supposed to be a setup on an attack on David Flair. David Flair was supposed to be the one coming up to the hotel room, and Kimberly was going to drug him.
Good, because I totally out of this one. I'm not going to lie.
Blame you. So this is how we got to the strap match. This is what led to the 14-time slaps or spanks.
Jesus.
Yes.
Anyway, doesn't matter because we are going to get a breather between this and that match because here comes Sting. Once again, with the title in hand, throws it on the mat once he gets in the ring. Says, you know, he didn't come here for a night off. He's challenging anyone to a match because it's showtime. And then leaves.
If I can add something, hasn't Sting been healing it up the entire time leading up to the show? So
yeah,
why is he suddenly going to go from, oh, I just got the easiest win of my life, making my money, I'm out, peace, to, nah, I'm a fighting champion. We've completely derailed and changed his character in a matter of 2 hours.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. He was definitely a heel at this point, but just coming out and doing that seemed out of character, but that's a lot of what this card is. Just like the strap match we're getting ready to watch between Diamond Dallas Page being accompanied to the ring by Kimberly Page versus the Nature Boy Ric Flair. This is not this is a different strap match. The decision is made when you win by pinfall or submission. So this is not a four-corner strap. It is that. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. The best part of this is everything after the match. I'm cutting right to the finish. DDP, a diamond cutter out of nowhere on Ric Flair. By the way, Ric Flair's bleeding buckets in this match. This is Sid buckets. But you can see that Ric Flair is trying to get his foot on the rope. I had to go back and watch this a couple times because the count, it was 1, 2, and then it wasn't like a full 3 all the way through, and there was a slight hesitation, but then you get little Nate calling for the bell. So I'm like, well what was supposed to happen? So going back, I think that Flair felt that his ropes were either closer to the ropes or they were under the ropes to where Little Nate could have, at least given him one there. But either way, gets the 3. Diamond Dallas Page is for some reason frustrated with this decision. So Diamond cutters Little Nate. Post-match, excellent. David Flair making his way down to the ring with a crowbar. Kimberly cuts him off, knees him below the belt. DDP now has the crowbar, hits Flair with it. DDP rolls David in the ring. Not 1, but 2 diamond cutters. Flair is then stretchered out, Ric Flair. And we watched this whole sequence to getting the gurney out, getting him on it, to the back, and then he's almost to the ambulance, jumped by the filthy animals who said he was going to be there all night.
Animal business.
They throw him in the ambulance and drive off. Wow. I originally gave this a 1 count in my notes. I'm changing it to a half count. First off, I don't like this type of strap match. I prefer the 4 corners, but that's here nor there. It's not a secret that I absolutely despise brawling through the crowd. You can go back and watch my Hardcore Justice review. You can watch my Anarchy Rules review. So it's not WCW specific. I give the same amount of hate across the board. It's so hard to see what's going on. But either way, it wasn't good. It was very convoluted. What did you grade this one?
So I actually did give it a 1 count. I thought the match was fun for the most part, and I thought it was actually really cool seeing a lot of similarities in this match and the dog collar match that we just saw on Dynamite between Cody and Brody Lee. A lot of very similar spots I had noticed between the two. Even some of the fumbling and dealing with the chain or the strap. So I thought that was kind of really cool, just in that retrospect. DDP closing Space Mountain, I thought was a perfect way to kind of pull off this whole thing. Started with trying to drug him and rape him, so we're gonna close it down.
God, I am ready to move on from this.
Are you though? Because you know where we're heading next.
I'm so looking forward to this. We get Sting out to the ring. This is the WCW Heavyweight Championship match between Sting and whoever answers the open challenge. And I wonder who it could be. Bum, 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 bum.
He ruins every pay-per-view. Here he comes again.
And he even kills fiends. It is Goldberg. He still has blood on him. Why are we... Okay, it might just be the world we live in 2020, but there is blood on his body. Why are we not cleaning wrestlers between matches?
I'm trying to think. I guess the Bob Orton Undertaker hepatitis scare didn't happen until like 2005. So I guess they might... That's genuinely terrifying, though. Like, how okay people were bleeding on each other. Like, knowing what we know now.
Yeah. So there's a lot of confusion as to whether this is a title match or not. It gets cleared up at the end of this, and then I will clear it up at the very end. But overall, this is your Goldberg match. It doesn't go for about 3 minutes or so. The big thing here is that Sting hits a spear, okay? Goldberg no-sells it and then hits a spin kick, connects right on Sting's jaw flush. Sting hits another win. He hits a couple of Stinger splashes. Goldberg spear, Goldberg jackhammer, Goldberg win. And then he is announced as the new WCW Heavyweight Champion. Listen, this might be because I've been tortured through this whole thing, but I gave it a 1 count. It was quick. It was clean. But at least it was exciting. Like, that's what this card lacked, was just excitement. Goldberg looked strong. Sting looked silly because everything backfired on him. What did you grade this?
I gave it a 1 count. It just... It was a thing that happened, and it was all just to set up more of the wonderful, wonderful Vince Russo shenanigans that
Absolutely.
is coming.
Vince Russo loves him a tournament. So post-match, which is very interesting because of what we're going to get into, Sting hits a Scorpion Death Drop on the referee as we fade to black. The next night on Nitro, Sting claims that he never agreed to defend the title. J.J. Dillon says that even though it was an unsanctioned match, he still vacated the title because of said Scorpion Death Drop. So we have a 32-person tournament that will culminate at next month's Mayhem to declare a new champion. At that pay-per-view, because I really don't want to review it, Chris Benoit defeats Jeff Jarrett. Bret Hart defeats Sting in the 2 semifinal matches. And in the main event of the card, we get Bret Hart defeating Chris Benoit to become the new champion.
So this was great for Chris Benoit, and it made a lot of sense with what they did here. WCW missed an incredible booking situation here because, like you just said, Bret Hart beat Sting, but Sting just beat the total package. We could have had the rematch at this pay-per-view with Bret Hart going over. We had another opportunity to really build on this Bret Hart. Bret Hart could have made up for the submission loss at this pay-per-view, but once again, missed opportunities.
So this would lead to Starrcade and Bret Hart versus Goldberg. It is the infamous match where Goldberg would kick him in the side of the head, leading to the end of his in-ring career. So if we're thinking about it long-term, Vince Russo caused the end of Bret Hart's in-ring career with the work shoot with Hogan, and then that leading to the main event of Halloween Havoc, then to Mayhem, then to Starrcade. This was him. He killed Bret Hart's in-ring career. I'm jumping right to it. Vince Russo is getting the Russo Award because why wouldn't he? It's named after him. But my final grade overall for this show is a 0.5 star out of 5. I have the Ric Flair Award going to Sid Vicious versus Goldberg. We've talked about it throughout the show. It's hard to watch. Russo was all over the show. I gave 4 0 counts, which is a referee's discretion record. And when that happens, there's a bigger problem, and it was Vince Russo. What did you give a grade for the show as a whole?
This might be harsh. I gave it a 0 count.
Good.
Honestly, and I think the biggest part of that was you had matches that could have been really good and really interesting, but you overbooked them to the point where we wouldn't care. You made your triple threat tag team match with maybe your most potential. Should have been match of your night. You had it done in 5 minutes because you had a mummy drop in the backstage. It's just so frustrating. Like this is what you go back and look at. And WCW had some incredible moments, but this is the ending legacy. This is how it ends.
Yeah. I'm ready to wash my hands of this. So those are our thoughts on WCW Halloween Havoc 99. What did you think of the event? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Tune in to watch WrestleCast live every Monday and Thursday on Facebook and YouTube, and listen on the go on Apple Podcast. Please check out Patrick Lilly's Creative Control and keep an eye out for the debut of the Dean of Old School, Dwight Parker Show. Do your darn homework. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and follow Podcast World Order on all social media platforms. If you like what we're doing and would like to support Podcast World Order, you can find us at Ko-fi in the link in the description box below. Where can they find you on social media?
You can find me at PWO WrestleCast on Twitter, the PWO Podcast World Order right on Facebook. There's the Matt Lilly Twitter, but we don't really need to go into that one. Just focus on the PWO stuff.
I'll put everything in the description box below. So for next week's episode, we're into November, which means Survivor Series. We are taking a look at Survivor Series 1990. From everyone here at Podcast World Order, thank you for watching. And remember, at the end of the day, it's referee's discretion. I'm Codd Sinclair. That's Matt Lilly, and we will see you next time.